We've lost another dinosaur game. Another game has ultimately ended its development cycle before it could even get to full release. A game that stood out with its futuristic alien zombie horde style dinosaur mechanics and a different gameplay loop to what we know in the dinosaur gaming genre. But this didn't stand the test of time, because on the 16th of October it announced that it is ending its development cycle. This is the story of the end of Second Extinction. Before we talk about the story, I think it's important to know what is Second Extinction. What was the game? For all of you people who are blissfully unaware and didn't actually get the opportunity to know about this game, this was an early access, first-person shooter game with dinosaurs. Your aim is to reclaim Earth, teaming up with up to 2 of your friends, all playing solo. Your aim is to literally fight off hordes or through hordes of dinosaurs, mutant dinosaurs with raptors and rexes and all of them trying to kill you. Literally, your aim is to just destroy them all. The game's premise was simple, just that mutated raptors, T-Rexes, and more were trying their hardest to kill you, but they had unique attacks like electric shock attacks, acid spitting attacks, digging underground, or even calling more of their mutant horde. Your aim is to destroy the nests. The dinosaur nests had to be destroyed, with several different threat levels among different maps across the globe, which are applied to each area depending on the dinosaur's population. This would then lower as you fight through that area, and as people fight through and destroy the nests, that threat level in that area will lower. The dinosaurs would move elsewhere, so in other areas the threat level would grow higher and become more dangerous for you to fight off. It was a game made by Systemic Reaction, who have actually made some other games as well, so they're quite an established developer. And when it was released, it done well. Lots of positive reviews, people enjoyed it, but over time, that fell apart, ultimately resulting in the demise of the game, the failure of the game. The problems with Second Extinction began right away. It was released into early access on Steam in 2020, but was released as well onto Xbox Game Pass in 2021. So it was an early access title that went into Game Pass straight away, with the game scheduled to launch fully in 2022. However, this would later change. The initial release date was scheduled for 2022, of course, but in November of 2022, this was something that was delayed once again, delayed until the following year, 2023. So the player base had to wait another year until this game was fully released. The delay was down to one main thing: missing targets and critical issues arising during the development of the game, which meant developers had to focus on them in order to fix them first and then get the game released into that full development phase. This was tough. The game's development team was a small team. They're not a big team, Systemic Reaction isn't a big development team. They're not really a AAA studio at that. And it ultimately made it so the targets that they were trying to achieve, they kept having to push back, desperately scrambling and needing to hit those targets, which they couldn't meet because of lack of resources, a smaller team that made it a lot harder. As they said in 2022, they needed to iron out some particularly stubborn bugs. The bugs were mainly ones causing crashes in the game that were difficult to fix because they were difficult to replicate. And when you have a bug like that, that's difficult to replicate but is actually just a big, nasty bug that causes crashes, that's going to hold resources back, because a lot of time is then tried and invested into trying to fix that bug. And that's what they were trying to do, fix the issues that kept arising. The list of bugs was extensive as well, but they had them on lock. On their community page, they listed every single known bug, and they had a graph to see which ones are being looked into and which ones were known. So it was good to see that these developers pretty much known what's going on, let the community know what they know, and let the community know what's being fixed. But surely this wasn't the reason for the game's failure. A couple bugs, yeah, that happens. So many games have that. Surely that isn't the reason why the game couldn't get to its final release stage and ultimately got cancelled. After all, maybe it could have made it, right? The game might have gotten high accolades, a loyal community, and even onto Xbox Game Pass when it was released in 2021, but that did not replicate in terms of a growing or stable player base at that, which sadly is what games need, especially ones that are either single player or limited multiplayer in the form of co-op. On its PC, when it first released, it capped at 2,000 players, which is great for an indie game. I'm assuming they were very happy with that release, because 2,000 players in the first month or first day or whatever is a big feat for a game like that, especially an indie game with a small team. But it did not keep that going, dropping down to 400 within the first month, or the second month so to say, and fluctuating for a year after that in the year that it was released, with 200 to 700, but ultimately bottoming out later in that first year to low 100s or even below 100, which is not good, especially when you're trying to maintain a player base while you promise to get through that early access phase and get to a full release. Obviously, when it released onto Xbox Game Pass, the player base peaked. Now, I don't have the numbers for Xbox because I don't know how exactly to find the player base numbers for Xbox games, but I'm assuming because it was on Game Pass, it done quite well. Additionally, it was showcased a lot in a lot of Xbox showcases. It was one of those games that was like, look at what we have. This is a really cool game and it's an Xbox exclusive and it's not on PlayStation. So I'm assuming it done well. Even on Steam, it hit 1,500 roughly in terms of its player count, which I'm assuming was replicated massively on the Xbox side. The issue was, however, this did not keep going. The game's updates were few and far between, with a couple supply drops in the first months of 2022 and then a full launch date reveal trailer in later 2022. With the player count dwindling, the game needed something to keep it alive, but it simply didn't get that. That lifeline that it needed, it didn't get it. It couldn't get it. The updates were mainly bug fixes, no new content, specifically maybe the odd new dinosaur get added to the hordes of dinosaurs maybe, but that was very infrequent. And to be fair, it's a tough ask, you know? A small dev team that's got multiple games under their belt that they're having to manage is something where you need to pick your poison. And as soon as something starts dropping off, you need to think about if it's worth it. And especially when you have to balance between new content updates and fixing the bugs within the game. Especially when your aim was to get this game to a full launch, and then that's that. But of course, it didn't get to that full launch stage, and that's why we're making this video. Because ultimately, the lack of player base meant that they didn't really have the resources or the funding to keep things afloat. And ultimately, that's what broke the camel's back. Not many people playing the game meant that not many people were purchasing the game, which means that the studio isn't getting the revenue to maintain the game, pay workers, maintain servers, and keep the game running. And that's where we're at today. And here we are, the end of Second Extinction. This came on the 16th of October 2023. The developers ultimately announced that with mixed emotions had to share a difficult decision, and that was to end the development of the game. This dinosaur game that was pretty interesting, unique, and definitely brought a new twist to the dinosaur gaming genre had ultimately met its maker. The end of it. Tying all of this to big issues preventing them from leaving early access, the game preview missing targets and forcing them to reevaluate the game's development. But then again, the lack of resources, which ultimately for a smaller team was one of the biggest things that broke the camel's back here. They announced that the game would be pulled from all storefronts, and they done that immediately with immediate effect. You can't buy the game anymore. And of course, coming up later this year, they'll be shutting down the servers for the game as well, and that includes those for single player, which means you won't be able to play the game anymore. And I understand people were not happy with that. If you check the Steam reviews now for the game, it's just overwhelmingly negative, especially the recent ones, because, well, I mean, people are upset they can't play a game that they really liked. But that being said, at the end of the dev blog, they did say 2 paragraphs, and I feel like it's a good way to end the video going over them paragraphs, because, well, I think it's quite important to talk about. As game developers, we always try to highlight our wins, but sometimes we also need to celebrate our failures. Although Second Extinction did not achieve the goals we aspired to, it remains a success for us on many levels. Our small team turned an innovative concept into a fast-paced, fun experience that is amazing when shared with friends. And when it's all said and done, our mission is to bring this kind of joy to players everywhere in creative, explosive ways. In addition, Second Extinction has been a major learning experience for us. We've come a long way, with a list of things that worked incredibly well, and things we know to avoid for future projects. One thing is for certain, while Second Extinction may be coming to a close, our commitment to crafting memorable moments that capture the magic of gaming will never fade. Although this isn't the outcome any of us hoped for, we want to assure you that there'll be no layoffs associated with this decision. The passion, talent and skill of the team who worked on Second Extinction is being put to good use on other projects across Avalanche Studios Group. We ask for your understanding and compassion towards the team members involved on the project who poured their hearts into the game as we move on to our next adventures. And that's that. The end of Second Extinction.